Joining me now is Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat from California and member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's great to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, we just got news before we came on air that the Judiciary, the Justice Department sent a new response to Senators Tillis and Cornyn. Then we got news that the vote has officially been postponed. Anything we don't know that you know? And what do you make of all of this?
I don't have anything beyond that. I think it's positive. I just hope that these two senators, in particular Senator Cornyn, don't settle for too little. This settlement, this bogus settlement that came from the president essentially suing himself, waiting till he was president, then suing the IRS for $10 billion so that he could get the IRS and the DOJ to agree to some incredibly wonderful, generous terms that he, his family, their associates, their businesses, their subsidiaries, et cetera, would all be immune from audit examination for anything that went before the signing of that document. This is to a guy who is a known tax cheater. So hugely valuable, potentially worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That's just part of it. The other part is the slush fund for the cop beaters. And here's the deal. They're already paying off some of the president's supporters using the judgment fund. They've already paid off Michael Flynn. They really don't need a special slush fund to do it. And I would hope these senators recognize that and that they will insist on protections against using other department funds to pay off the president's cronies. And as for that tax settlement, that should be shredded. The court has already found this was a collusive agreement, and no amount of narrowing should be able to rescue that deal.
There's no question they could go farther. I mean, they've been focused, to your point, on the IRS settlement, just really modifying the audit portion of it, which certainly is also outrageous and saves the Trump family a great deal of money. Why do you think? I mean, we have seen Epstein survivors on the Hill. That is outrageous, too. Todd Blanche's handling of that. There are a lot of things that they could pick apart. Why this? What do you make of that?
You know, it's a good question. I think the cop beater fund was just offensive to them at a different level. And the more they looked at the tax thing, the more they recognized it was some really ugly self-dealing. But that should bother them. But so, too, should the fact that Blanche and the department are using that department to go after the president's enemies to the preposterous degree of indicting James Comey over a bunch of seashells, to the dangerous degree of going after my Senate colleagues for putting out a video the president didn't like. That kind of abuse should alarm them as much as anything they've seen. And of course, we don't hear a peep from them about that.
It would be significant, obviously, if Todd Blanche didn't get through the Judiciary Committee. I don't want to, that would be significant. We don't know that that will happen yet, but as of right now, it's postponed. He would still be the Deputy Attorney General. He could still be the Acting Attorney General. Trump could decide not to nominate someone to, I guess, I mean, he could choose that, I suppose. Why is it so important to block this confirmation from him being formally confirmed as the Attorney General as opposed to acting? What should people understand about that?
I think people should understand that the president has been able to engage in so much over-the-top corruption because the Senate and the House are not acting as a check on his power the way the founders contemplated. The significance of essentially defeating this high-level nominee is that the Congress is, in a way, back to doing its institutional job in rejecting purely unqualified people or people who should be disqualified for abusing the positions they already have. So it's an important statement that Congress is not willing to roll over for this president on everything. Will it matter in terms of the conduct of the department? If Blanche is given carte blanche as the acting AG, it may functionally be very similar. But I think it sends an important message, sets an important precedent, maybe emboldens the Senate to go beyond this decision and in other respects reject the insupportable.
It should feel good to play a better role in history books in moments, we should say. You mentioned James Comey. I just went through some of the news we learned today from filings, I should say, from his team. We learned today that the U.S. Secret Service was surveilling James Comey, something a Secret Service supervisor warned was legally questionable. That is generous. We knew, of course, we knew Trump was obsessed with Comey and that he was ready to cross lines. You're one of the people he's also obsessed with. The surveillance, though, by the Secret Service does feel like it crosses a new kind of line. What do you make of that?
Well, and this is a perfect segue from our conversation about Blanche, because here they, in these internal communications, are saying, mid-level people are saying, we should not do this.
Yeah.
This is not going to look well when it reaches the sunlight. And they do it anyway. They use these emergency authorities to do it anyway. And remember, we've got senators on the Judiciary Committee who are just irate that their telephone toll records were subpoenaed during the Jack Smith investigation. And by the way, for good reason. They're just incensed about that. But, oh, they're okay with a improper emergency authority used to surveil a former FBI director because he's on the president's enemies list? That's okay? So I think there are some common threads here. These internal records and just the facial invalidity of the indictment, I think are going to get this case thrown out, like the last bogus case against James Comey was thrown out. But I also think in terms of another case where the Justice Department subpoenaed the records of reporters who wrote that story about the safety problems with the Qatari jet, that part of why they may have decided to withdraw those subpoenas is the judge in that case was asking to see the internal DOJ communications. So I don't think the Justice Department wanted to turn those over. They're probably just as embarrassing as what they had to turn over in the Comey case. And given that Jay Clayton, who was up for confirmation for the Director of National Intelligence, approved those subpoenas and testified under oath that they followed normal procedures, if those internal documents show otherwise, he would have had a real problem, and he still will have a real problem.
The other detail I wanted to ask you about, given your background as a prosecutor, I mean, we also learned that the DOJ allegedly tried to use the notorious gangster Sammy the Bull as a witness to prove that 86 means to kill, which he would not corroborate. This, to me, strikes me as something that would be written into a movie about politics that somebody would strike because it just doesn't seem real. I mean, level set for us on this one.
That is definitely hit the cutting room floor material. So much of this is beyond contemplation for any self-respecting prosecutor. I can't imagine any self-respecting prosecutor bringing a Seychelles case to begin with, but even so, who had the brilliant idea of trying to get some mobster as some kind of an expert witness, character witness? It's so absurd that it just strikes you what a flagrant abuse this is when you're going to that kind of extremity to try to prop up a Seychelles case. So the judiciary's gotten a lot more partisan. I don't know what this judge will do, but it seems like a pretty clear case for dismissal.
I didn't have Sammy the Bull on my bingo card this week. Maybe I should have. Senator Adam Schiff, thank you as always for being here.
Thank you.